There are movie theaters that never turn off the projector. There are auditoriums where, even after you've left, someone is still sitting, and there are reels of film, not made to be watched, but to be remembered. Do you believe that a movie ticket can be a one-way pass to a place where the last screening never comes? In today's video, you'll step into 3 spine-chilling stories where the screen and reality slowly become one. A night shift technician notices that seat 17 is always reserved, even though no one ever shows up. A couple watches a movie and realizes the footage being shown is of them in real time, and a film restoration worker handles an anonymous reel. But every time it's played, another soul is captured forever. If you enjoy that shiver down your spine feeling in the middle of the night, where silence is scarier than screams, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss these chilling yet deeply psychological stories. Every single subscription from you is a huge motivation that helps me bring the most haunting tales to the screen. Thank you for stopping by the channel. Now, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and step into the dark theater with me. The Orion Theater nestled between 2 red brick buildings in Denver's Old Quarter, where the streetlights always seemed tired and silhouettes only appeared when someone needed to hide from something. It was once a glorious cinema in the 60s. Now it's just a withered husk surviving on retro screenings for the nostalgic or the lonely. Joel Carver didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in paychecks, shift schedules, and strong coffee to survive the night. Being a projection technician sounded romantic to outsiders, but in reality, it meant sitting alone in a stuffy little booth, watching film reels spin through worn gears, listening to the soft crackling of metal groaning like it was mourning something. That evening, as usual, Joel checked the printed reservation list from the system. The midnight movie was Rosemary's Baby, and there were exactly 12 guests. But what made him stop was the last line. Seat 17, row D, reserved. No name, no transaction ID. Just the word reserved in plain Arial font, as if someone had typed it manually. Seat 17, right in the middle of the auditorium, was always reserved, every night. No one ever showed up, but it always appeared on the list. Joel had once asked the manager about it, but got only a lazy shrug and the response, "Probably just a system glitch. Don't worry about it." But Joel did worry, because every night after the guests had all left, he noticed something strange. Seat 17, and only that seat, had a visible indentation, as if someone had been sitting there the entire time. Once, he even found faint fingerprints on the armrest, as light as smoke, yet as deep as ink soaked into wood. Tonight, Joel decided to do something he'd never dared before. He would stay in the auditorium until the lights went out, to see who or what would take seat 17. Joel sat silently in the dark of the Orion Theater, the rows of empty seats stretching out before him like the blackened teeth of some ancient beast. On the screen, Rosemary's Baby was still playing the scene where Mia Farrow peers into the crib, the audio faint, distorted, and haunting, like an echo from the other side. He chose to sit in the back row, just a few rows behind seat 17. Clutching a small flashlight, Joel tapped his foot, his breathing growing heavier with each passing minute. Everyone had left. Only he remained. And perhaps that person. 11:52 p.m. A cold draft slipped through the back door of the theater, though every entrance was locked. Joel flinched at the sound of fabric rustling, not loud, not clear, but very close. He pointed his flashlight toward seat 17, empty, but the seat was slowly rising. gently, as if someone had just stood up. Joel swallowed hard. Cold sweat coated his palms. He stepped forward slowly toward row D, heart pounding like a war drum. The air was thick, filled with dust, mildew, and another scent. Musty, like an old coat left forgotten for too long. He reached out and touched the armrest of seat 17. It was still warm. Someone had been sitting there. A click echoed from the projection booth, the familiar sound of a switch being flipped. But Joel hadn't left the projector running, and the film was still playing. He spun around. On the screen, the movie had changed. No more Mia Farrow. No more film set. Instead, it was the Orion Theater itself. A camera angle from the back of the projection room aimed straight at the auditorium seats. Joel froze. On the screen, a man was sitting alone in the theater, alone among the empty rows. It was him. He swung the flashlight behind him, scanning the actual projection room. Empty. Then looked back at the screen. The man on screen slowly turned his head, staring directly at the camera, staring directly at him. The face was unclear, but the movement was disturbingly smooth. And then, on the screen, white text appeared. "Don't stand behind seat 17. Joel's chest tightened like a vice. He heard the rustling of fabric again, this time right beside him. Seat 16 had just sprung upright, then seat 18. Seat 17 remained empty, but the surrounding seats were moving. Joel stumbled backward, tripped, and fell. The flashlight clattered to the floor, its beam flickering wildly across the ceiling. And then, on the screen, the man began to stand, his movements mirroring Joel's exactly, like a reflection from the past or the future. Joel scrambled to his feet, grabbed the flashlight, and bolted out of the auditorium as if fire was chasing him. But when he reached the main exit, he froze. The handle wouldn't budge. He grabbed it with both hands and twisted hard. Nothing. The door was locked from the outside. A chill crawled down his spine like 1,000 fingernails clawing at his skin. He turned back. On the screen, the other man was still standing in the middle of the auditorium, identical to Joel, but now holding a film reel. The air inside the theater felt thick, like something was watching from all directions. Joel sprinted to the projection booth, ready to shut off the machine, but what he saw stopped him. The projector was running a reel he'd never seen before. The reel was tagged with a torn, weathered label, scrawled with just a few words. Reel 17, 1986, do not project. Joel flipped through the archive log. No one had ever logged this reel into the system. It wasn't in the database. No reports, as if it had appeared on its own. He paused when he spotted a photograph taped to the back of the reel canister. A faded black and white photo of the Orion Theater auditorium. Seat 17 clearly visible. And in the photo, a young man with long hair, wearing a leather jacket, was staring directly at the camera. A faint note scribbled on the back read, "Last guest, October 25th, 1986. Joel looked closer at the man. The face was hauntingly familiar, because he'd seen it before, in the mirror, in dreams, and in an old photo his mother once kept, back when she worked as a cashier at the Orion Theater in the 1980s. He pulled out his phone and checked his birth date, July 25th, 1987. A terrifying thought began to take shape. The man in the photo could very well be his father. Joel had never known who his father was. His mother never told him. She only said, "He disappeared right before you were born." He looked back at the screen. The man in the film was now sitting back in seat 17. But this time he turned and looked directly at the camera, his eyes dark, bottomless like cold stone pits. And then he smiled. The film stopped. The projector gave a soft click and shut down. The room sank into total darkness. No footsteps, no sounds. But Joel knew. He was no longer alone. A whisper echoed inside his head, not from any direction he could trace. Now it's your project turn. 3 days later, Joel returned to the Orion Theater. He didn't know why he did it. He only remembered the emptiness that followed that night, as if all the noise in the world had been replaced by the slow, crackling sound of a projector spinning inside his head. He had taken the reel home, burned it, watched it burn, smelled the acrid stench of melting plastic. But the next morning, when he opened his closet, the reel was there, intact, cool to the touch, like it had been kept in the freezer of memory. Joel tried sending an anonymous letter to the city archives, but every place he contacted responded the same. No record of that reel existed. No one remembered ever screening it. No one remembered the man in the photograph. Only him. Only the next in line. And that night, as he sat once more in the projection booth, Joel turned on the camera. He placed the tripod facing the auditorium, the exact angle captured in the reel. The screen was blank, nothing playing. But through the camera, on the tiny monitor, seat 17 was not empty. A shadowed figure sat there, silent, unclear. Joel didn't look away. He simply sat and watched, because now he understood. The Orion Theater didn't project films for entertainment. It is projected to record. And everyone who sat in seat 17 left a piece of themselves on the celluloid. That night, the Orion Theater shut off its lights as usual. The next morning, a stranger came to buy a ticket for the midnight show. The system wouldn't allow a sale for seat 17 because that seat was already taken. If Amy had known that date night would end with her scream echoing from the screen, she might have chosen Netflix at home instead. But she didn't know. And Chris, the new boyfriend, was the type who appreciated things that were authentic, which is why he brought her to the Sunset Theater. An old weathered cinema tucked between two abandoned storefronts where the neon signs flickered like they were dying. They say Theater 3 was closed for technical issues, Chris said with a half smile while buying the tickets. Just reopened. Must be fate. Amy didn't believe in superstitious nonsense. She was a senior graphic design major. Reason and logic were what kept her sane through sleepless deadline nights. But something about the Sunset Theater unsettled her. Not a specific fear, more like the creeping sense that the place was silently watching her. She and Chris sat in the middle of the auditorium, row G, seats 9 and 10. Theater 3 was small, its walls wrapped in faded velvet, the air thick with a blend of mold and bleach, the scent of rotting time. On the screen, a blurry test trailer played, the image grainy like film stock from the 1970s. Amy noticed there was no one else in the theater, no staff, no voices, only the steady hum of the projector and the cold bluish-white glow from the screen cast across the empty rows like light dissecting the belly of a dead creature. Then the film started. No title, no studio logo. The first frame, a movie theater. Not the same, but eerily similar. Same layout, same seat placement. The camera panned toward the middle row, exactly where the two of them were sitting. Amy gave a dry chuckle. Guess it's one of those meta films. Chris nodded. But when the character on screen looked up and stared directly into the lens, Amy felt something icy crawl down her spine, and then she realized the person on screen was wearing exactly what she was wearing. Amy tried to swallow hard, her eyes fixed on the screen. She saw the female character in the film, same denim skirt, gray sweatshirt, shoulder-length curly hair. It wasn't just a resemblance, it was her. Every detail, down to the chipped silver bracelet. This couldn't be a coincidence. Chris leaned over. "You think this is kinda weird?" "Yeah, weird," Amy whispered, gripping the armrest tightly. She turned her head to glance around. The auditorium was still empty. No one else. No whispers. No creaking seats. But the sensation was like someone sitting in the row behind her, just inches from her neck. On the screen, the camera panned slowly, as if someone were filming handheld inside this very theater. A low angle from the floor aimed directly at row G, right where they were seated. No soundtrack, only the soft hum of the projector. Then white text appeared on a black screen. "Don't stand up. He's watching." Both of them froze. Chris glanced at Amy, as if to confirm she saw it too, that it wasn't a hallucination. But before either of them could react, the theater went completely dark. The screen blacked out. The projector fell silent. No light, not even from the emergency exit signs. "Maybe the breaker?" Chris stood up. "Don't..." Amy tried to stop him, but click. The projector flicked back on, but it wasn't playing the film anymore. It was broadcasting. A live feed of the auditorium, from an elevated angle, like a security camera. On screen was the theater, exactly as it was now. Chris standing, Amy curled up in her seat. A third figure slowly appeared behind Chris on the screen. A long, shadowy silhouette, blurry, faceless, like a smudge on the lens. But it cast a shadow on the actual theater floor. Chris spun around, saw nothing. But Amy screamed, because on the screen, that shadow was reaching toward her. Chris grabbed her hand, and they both ran to the door. But when they got there, they stopped in their tracks. The emergency exit was chained shut with rusted links, as if it hadn't been opened in decades. No staff, no cell signal. Every way out had vanished. Amy looked around. The theater lights were dead. The hallway stretched endlessly into black. The screen behind them was still running, now showing footage of them fumbling at the door, and the camera angle was getting closer. The footsteps on the screen echoed rhythmically, each beat tapping into a deep, primal fear. Every movement of the camera felt like a thud slamming into Amy's chest. Chris pulled her toward the hallway leading to the projection booth. "Someone has to be controlling this," he panted. "They're messing with our heads." "No," Amy hissed through clenched teeth. "This isn't a prank." The projection room door was slightly ajar. They pushed it open and froze. Inside, the projector was running, but there was no film reel, no cables, no connected devices. The image projected directly onto a small monitor in the corner, showing a live feed of exactly what was happening in the theater, in real time. An old file folder lay on the table, its cover yellowed and brittle, marked in shaky red ink, Projector 3-1977 Incident. Amy opened it. Inside was a report on an unreleased disappearance case. A couple, a woman named Emily Graves and a man named Thomas Hill, were reported missing inside the Sunset Theater in 1977. The last place they were seen was in Theater 3. The attached photo made Amy stop breathing. The woman in the photo, Emily, had curly hair, a body type, and facial features uncannily similar to Amy's. Not just a resemblance, a repetition. Chris glanced at another sheet, taped to the wall with crumbling masking tape. It was a handwritten list: 1977, 1983, 1992, 2001, 2013, each spaced a few years apart, each line followed by "to guests" and "not retrieved." Amy backed away, trembling. The small monitor blinked. The image shifted to a new angle, from the front, taken from the main theater screen. A camera from the opposite row, capturing Amy holding the file, Chris looking up, exactly as they were right now. They stared at the screen, and on it, they were staring back at themselves. Suddenly, the theater lights flared to life. A soft ding echoed, like the chime at the end of a movie. The main door creaked open. A lone figure stood silently in the lobby. Not a staff member, not a security guard. Just someone waiting. "We have to get out of here," Chris whispered. Amy looked back at the screen. It now played in slow motion, the scene of them running toward the door. But in the lower left corner, that shadow, the faceless figure, remained still, as if waiting for the right moment to take another step forward. They ran. No looking back, no stopping. The Sunset Theater behind them loomed in darkness, as if it had swallowed a piece of their souls. Outside, a light rain had begun to fall, though the sky had sparkled with stars when they arrived. Chris held Amy's hand tightly, the two of them running like fugitives from a nightmare that had no name. But they knew it was real. At the police station, they told everything. Theater 3, the untitled film reel, the list of disappearances, the real-time surveillance screen. The old officer stared at them over the rim of his reading glasses, shaking his head slowly. Theater 3's been closed since 2002. That part of the building collapsed due to mold damage. "There's no theater like the one you're describing," Chris shouted. Amy reached for her phone. No photos, no videos. Both were sure they had recorded, had taken pictures. Nothing remained. No one believed them. The following week, they moved out of the city. 8 months later, Amy began having insomnia. She said she always saw the theater's flickering projection light in her bathroom mirror. Chris developed a fear of the dark, not because he couldn't see, but because he was terrified something might be seeing him. They stopped watching movies altogether. No theaters, no Netflix, not even their phone cameras. Every time they looked at a screen, they feared they'd see themselves again, but from a different angle, from somewhere they couldn't remember ever being. The following year, on the exact anniversary of their visit to the Sunset Theater, Chris received an email from an untraceable address. "New screening ready." Attached was a digital ticket, seats G9 and G10. They never responded, never spoke of it again, but both of them knew. The auditorium was still there. The screen was still running. And sooner or later, it would choose its next two viewers. Eric Halden wasn't the kind of person who got easily unsettled. 3 years working in the city's old film archive had made him immune to the dark, to the screech of jammed VHS tapes, and to the wheezing hum of analog projectors spinning like the final breath of a dying machine. He liked the silence here. No deadlines, no people, just him, dust-covered reels, and time, slow, heavy, like the musty scent of aged paper soaking into his lungs. But that day, at the end of his shift, Eric received a package with no return address. It was tightly wrapped in black cloth, marked with "For restoration, urgent," scrawled in red ink that had bled and faded over the years. Curious, he brought it into the test screening room. Inside was a 35mm film reel, unlabeled, no catalog number, no metadata. only a single handwritten line on the rim of the metal canister. Reel 17, do not project. Eric powered on the projector. He couldn't resist. The first frame flickered into view, hazy, black and white, grainy like fog. An old movie theater appeared, empty, the camera fixed at the back of the auditorium, pointed toward the screen. No characters, no dialogue. Only the hum of the reel spinning, mixed with a faint, indistinct background noise that sounded eerily like breathing. He thought he was watching archival footage, maybe from the 1950s. But when he rewound the film, one detail made his heart skip. Each time he replayed it, the number of people in the theater increased. At first, it was empty. The second time, one person sat in the back row. The third time, two people. None of them moved, but the angle of their heads was turned toward the camera, staring at him. Eric shot up from his seat. It felt like he had accidentally turned on something that was never meant to be reawakened. Not a film, but the eyes of something waiting to be opened. Eric stepped back, heart pounding, eyes still fixed on the screen. The fourth viewing. 3 figures were now scattered throughout the auditorium, unmoving, expressionless, like wax statues eroded by darkness. What truly made his skin crawl. With each replay, the number of people didn't reset. It continued from where it left off, as if the reel wasn't just replaying the past, but recording something new. He opened his laptop and checked the metadata. No creation date, no timestamp, no technical data. The info panel was completely blank, something that had never happened with any reel he'd worked on before. He tried pausing halfway. The reel stopped silently, but when he rewound it, the frame had changed. The camera had moved, no longer fixed. It was moving on its own through the theater. Eric felt goosebumps rise across his entire body. In the next screening, the camera panned from the entrance, glided down the hallway, and slowly entered the theater. On screen, the dim light cast across the rows of seats. There were people, not just one, but the entire auditorium was now nearly full. All sat motionless, but every single head had turned to face the camera, which meant they were looking at him. Eric stumbled backward, hitting a rack of film reels, sending a cascade of metal canisters crashing onto the floor. The clanging echoed painfully through the closed room. The projector kept running. He shouted, "Stop!" The machine cut off. The room plunged into darkness. Only the sound of his ragged breathing remained, and something else, very faint, the whirring of gears, from somewhere else. He rushed to the control panel and pulled the power cord. Auxiliary lights flickered on. The room was empty, but the reel, still on the machine, was untouched, unburned, unbroken. Eric removed the reel, sealed it inside its container, and carried it down to the archive's restricted section, placing it into the Do Not Restore drawer where unsafe or unverified materials were kept. But when he returned to his desk, the reel was sitting neatly on top of it. He was certain, 100% sure, he had locked the storage vault. No one could have entered. This time, there was an extra line scribbled on the outside of the case, in shaky black ink, like the handwriting of an old man. "Thank you for watching. Now it's your turn to film." Eric staggered back, collapsing into his chair. On his computer screen, offline, with no webcam connected, a window popped open automatically. An image from a camera, filming him from behind. Eric instantly closed the window on his screen, heart pounding like a war drum. But as he stood up, the computer lit up again. This time, not with a camera feed, but a video playing. No control bar, no way to close it. The footage showed Eric himself, sitting at his desk, just as he was now, but his face pale, eyes wide as if he'd seen something far beyond human comprehension. He looked around. No visible cameras, no webcam, no surveillance. Eric pulled up the internal security system to check the building's cameras. Every device displayed the same message: inactive, as if someone, or something, was running its private system. He reopened the video's metadata. Recording date: tomorrow. Trembling, Eric opened the archive cabinet. He remembered a folder marked confiscated materials, records of storage violations transferred from other archives. Inside, he found a thin dossier labeled "Do Not Use." Inside were brief, fragmented witness accounts from those who had seen a similar reel, cataloged as Reel 17. They all followed the same pattern: watch the film, see themselves, get called, lose the ability to sleep, experience hallucinations, disappear from employment records. None were ever found again. A loose sheet fell out of the folder, handwritten, shaky. There are only two ways to stop it: record someone else in the seat, watch it to the end. Eric felt his body go rigid. He looked at the reel, now visibly vibrating on the table, as if eager to be played again. He pulled out his camcorder, hands shaking. No, I can't. I can't bring someone else into this. But inside his mind, a voice echoed, not his own. If you don't record, you'll be the final scene forever. At that exact moment, Eric's phone lit up. No call, no message, just the front camera activating on its own. On screen, his face, staring at the display, and a figure behind him. Eric spun around. No one there, just his own shadow stretched long across the wall. But the shadow was moving out of sync with his body. Eric didn't record anyone else. He didn't play the reel again either. Instead, he quit, resigned without explanation. No goodbyes. Just quietly left the archive, taking with him the one thing he couldn't leave behind: the reel. He tried to destroy it, burn it. It wouldn't catch fire. Drown it. It floated back up. Demagnetize it. The reel remained intact. Wherever he went, whatever he did, every time he looked at any screen, TV, phone, laptop, the images would occasionally slip out of sync with reality, like a single frame lagging in a slow-motion clip, as if his world and the world of the reel were slowly overlapping. The first night after leaving the archive, he dreamed he was sitting in an empty theater. On the screen, himself, staring upward with eyes that no longer had any whites. He told no one. No one would believe him. No one could help. It was just him and the reel, like a silent curse parasitizing his consciousness. 3 months later, Eric moved to a remote suburb, cut off the internet, no TV, no phone. But every year, on the exact anniversary of the day he first viewed the reel, a small USB drive appears on his doorstep. No one ever sees who delivers it. Inside is always a new video. High quality. The camera angle is always different, but it always ends the same way, with Eric, as he is now, opening the file and staring at the screen. And lately, whenever he looks in the mirror, he sees himself, waiting. 3 stories, 3 viewers, and 3 times the screen became a window into a place we were never meant to enter. Maybe you're thinking, it's just a story. But tonight, when you walk past a nearly empty theater, when the exit sign flickers slower than usual, you'll remember something. A seat that's never empty, a reel that never ends, or a gaze from the screen that seems to reflect your face. If these stories made you jump, made you check your camera before going to bed, or simply made the cinema feel a little less safe than before, leave a like, and comment below. Which story chilled you the most? I read every comment, and every single response fuels the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe so the newest stories find you first. Not to scare you, but to remind you. Some things are still playing, even when your screen goes dark. Thank you for staying till the end of the video. Your presence, even from the other side of the screen, means the world to me. See you again at the next screening, if you dare to return.